having good financial habits isn't really about the amount of money that you make.
Yeah, that's a really good point. People are like, man, I'll just do good when I get more money.
Right. People be like, yo, when I'm making them 6 figures, it's over for you bitches.
La, 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 la. Wait till I get my money right. It doesn't work like that, guys. What's good, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I am your host, Dr. Nii, and I am joined by...
Dr. Renee, Dr. Renee, Dr. Renee, Dr. Renee. Hey. Keep coming with the hits, baby.
You done?
Keep coming with the hits.
All right, y'all, let's jump into this episode. There's not a specific topic for this episode. This episode, we're going to just be kind of responding back to our listeners, whether it's on the podcast, YouTube, or even IG. Actually, we're not even rocking with people on YouTube. I got to check it out while we're talking. Right now, we're focusing on people on Instagram.
We're not rocking with people on
We are,
YouTube.
but sometimes it takes I don't know. The way how YouTube, guys, we're trying to get our YouTube stuff together. And sometimes the comments on YouTube, it's really hard to find out if it's a comment from our YouTube short or if it's either way. This episode is for y'all. We responding back to y'all. We got a lot of topics to jump into. But before we jump into it real quick, is this like a big deal or not? Or is this nothing but Bronny James, son of LeBron James?
Yeah.
Just has an NIL, which is the name, image, and likeness. That's the new thing where college athletes or even high school athletes can benefit off of their name, image, and likeness in high school as well as in college. And I mean, there's some really high deals going out there. And usually these type of deals are with, local businesses, maybe some internet startups, whatever it may be, crypto, whatever it may be. But Bronny James NIL value, that means he can get $7.2 million.
What?
Yeah.
So basically he owns his own name, image, and likeness.
Everybody owns their own name, image, and likeness. But people are...
Whereas they didn't before.
Well, in essence, they did, but they weren't able to profit off of it.
Okay, gotcha.
So he basically for the year or based off of all the deals that he signed, $7.2 million. It looks great, but then you're just like, but your dad is LeBron, right?
Well,
like who is like the number one endorsed athlete, I think, in the world.
Yeah, but I mean,
think right
even
next
more
to one
reason.
of the soccer players, I think. I can't recall, but it's like, is that really a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, even more reason for him to do it, right? Like, I mean, you got to train him up. You got to train him up right?
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is it that big of a deal? The whole thing of, it's really hard for athletes, particularly athletes' sons or daughters, to follow in their parents' footstep and to be on the same level as their parents. It rarely happens, right? It happened with Ken Griffey Jr., it happened with Barry Bonds. We're not sure if it's going to happen with LeBron and his son. Steph Curry, that's another one. That's Steph Curry's ascent is more similar to Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., where their father was all right, but the son is like amazing. Like Steph Curry's story is, Steph Curry's ascent is amazing. I don't think his story is amazing. Right. I think his ascent that's pretty cool, but I don't think the story. I'm like, your dad was one of the best 3-point shooters of all time, and you just happen to 10x that. But I mean, who's teaching you is one of the best 3-point shooters of all time? How amazing is that? That's great. Okay, whatever. Let's move on. As you can see, I'm a big Steph Curry fan, but I don't think that, like, when people say, oh, it's an amazing story, I'm like, it's an underdog story. It's like, how's that an underdog story? Your dad is one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. Like, how is this, like, you've learned from the best? Anyway, let's move on. I don't think that NIL deal sounds like a lot of money, but it's just like, your dad is the best player or one of the best players in the league.
Well, yeah, but there's something to be said about, yes, you have an advantage, but also doing things on your own. I think.
Is he really doing it on his own, though?
Well, but you know what I mean in terms of doing things on his own, right? Like doing something that belongs to him specifically, right? His dad is rich, right? If his dad decides that he wants to share, his riches with his kids, then that's great. But it's his dad who's rich. It's his dad who's making that money. So now he has to figure out, as an independent person eventually, like how he's going to make his own money, right? That, he wants to be able to build something of his own. I think that's fine. I don't know if it's
just makes me think about
but
I think it's newsworthy because I think people. Well, it's newsworthy because that's his That's
Okay,
his son,
that's fine.
right? That's the reason why he got headlines.
Right.
Most people who get NIL deals, run-of-the-mill NIL deals, or even people who have the best or the highest NIL deals, you don't really see them headlining on a sports journal. Most people don't even know who gets it, but we know about him.
Right.
I think mainly that's because he's LeBron James' son.
Yeah.
So, the reason I bring that up is, we're doctors. Our kids will have a certain, upbringing. There's certain barriers that they don't have to face that we faced.
I'm laughing because literally yesterday, our older son said, "Mommy, you said I can be a pilot, right?" I said, "Yeah, you could be a pilot if you want." He goes, "Good, because I definitely don't want to be a doctor." He's 5. I was like, "You don't have to be a doctor."
Did he say why he didn't want to be a doctor?
No, and I didn't ask. I was like, "Nope, you don't have to be a doctor. It's okay."
So yeah, I don't know. Are we doing a good job of representing to our kids and stuff?
But yeah,
I know he gets pissed every time I leave for locum. So
yeah, he does get mad every time you leave for locums. That's maybe why he doesn't want to be a doctor. It's all your fault, Nii.
It might be.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring that up is just like you said, what I'm saying is our kids are going to have a different type of lifestyle. There's certain barriers that we face that they don't have to face.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have their own set of barriers or their own set of obstacles that they're going to have to face that, some people are going to look at and just be like, really? But, both your parents are doctors.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And does that obscure their struggle?
In the eyes of some people, it might, right? But it depends on what the struggle actually
I mean, to me,
is.
if they start complaining, I'm like, come on, y'all. Please.
It depends on what the struggle actually is, right? I think, even people who are well off can have some struggles, not necessarily, the same struggles as people who are literally having life struggles, financial, socioeconomic struggles, but that doesn't negate the fact that people can have different struggles of their own. So, I mean, I think it all depends on what the struggle is.
Look at Renee being all mature, giving a mature answer and stuff.
Listen, one of us has to be mature on this damn podcast. One of us.
Well, anyway.
And today it's me.
Text us at 833-230-2860. Let me know what you think about that. Because there's also this thing that's going on in Hollywood where people talk about NEPO kids.
What's NEPO kids?
Like nepotism kids.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of actors and actresses who are getting
kids.
They're
yeah.
A lot of them are all products of famous dads and moms and stuff. So and then they'll go up there and be like, I had to struggle and I had to, do work 9 jobs and I had to work as a waitress and all these different things. It's like, yeah, but your dad was like a superstar, director and
but that doesn't negate the fact that they maybe did have to work as a waitress. Maybe they did have to, get rejected from so many roles. Maybe that still doesn't necessarily negate that struggle, right?
Does it? I don't know.
I don't think it negates it, Nii. I don't think it negates
You can't negate anything from anybody.
Well, apparently you think that that you can.
No, I didn't say you can negate it. I'm just kind of sometimes we make such a big deal about certain things and it's just like, is that really a big deal or is that is it expected? For me, I'm like, if something's expected, I don't make that much of a big deal about it. Whereas if it's unexpected, if we're not expecting someone to do certain things, to make certain accomplishments because they don't have the pedigree, I think that's more remarkable.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. So maybe some things are just more impressive than others.
Yes.
Right? So you talked about on the last episode, somebody coming from northern Ghana, making it all the way to the United States, and then, being able to graduate from, medical school in the United States and then matching. Right?
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's pretty impressive. So is that as impressive or is that more impressive than someone who, maybe grew up maybe on the poor side of, town of Chicago, made it to medical school and then, graduated and then matched? Which one's more impressive? Go ahead. Isolate your audience right now. Go ahead. Yo, them downloads about to go.
So listen, on episode 348, I talked about the books that I'm going to be reading. The 12 books.
So you just not going to say nothing?
I ain't answering that question. This is both tough, yo. So episode 348, we talked about the books that I'm going to be reading for the year. I don't feel like going through that list. I'm already going through that list right now. Just go check out 348. Plus, we need a download number. So I listed about 12 books. Huh?
Did we take a break?
No.
Okay.
I listed about 12 books that I'm going to read, and we got a Textiful or a text message
okay, I see where you're going.
from Jamar. Remember, guys, if you text us at 833-230-2860, that's literally the best way that you can directly communicate with us and let us know what's going on. Jamar, the man, sent us a message, and he says, book suggestion. There's a book called Indistractable by Nii and I think I said it right. He's also the author of the book called Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products. Indistractable explains the psychology driving our distractions and getting the most of our technology without letting it control our lives. Not sure if I'm going to add it to this year, but it might get added. I don't know. Either way, I might just read this. But this is where we're at right now in society, right? Like we are at a point where we are struggling with things that are we should be focusing on, things. What's the best way I want to say it? How should I say it? Distractions are a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that once you...
Everybody's distracted at this point.
Yeah, I mean, once you... there's all of these different YouTube videos and podcast studies that talk about what social media does to, your dopamine release factor and all these different things. And it's a big deal. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but I think once I started podcasting and once I started looking at metrics and seeing what other people do, I fell into that algorithm where I'm looking at things. Well, this person got this like, and this person didn't get this like, or I got this like, or I got this comment. How do I maximize this? You remember that point where I had to do a social media purge?
Yes.
Right? It came to a point where I was just looking at social media so much that you're competing against things on social media when you really shouldn't be, right? That's that person's best, realistically not very realistic look on
what they're polished.
What they're doing on business, what they're doing from a podcasting, what they're doing from YouTube, all of those different things. And it's a problem. So we got a major problem because I think we have a society of people or a significant amount of people who may not know how to concentrate past 15 seconds or so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that explains the whole YouTube shorts and Instagram, reels, TikTok reels, being very, very short. And it's funny because when I talk about the MCAT, right, when I'm talking with my students about simulation and, doing full length exams and figuring out how long per question they should spend, how much time they should spend on each question, I often used to say, hey, when you sit down and you watch a movie and you can tell, even without looking at a clock, that the movie is over 2 hours, right? You're just in the theater or you're at home and you're watching a movie and you're like, this movie's over 2 hours. And you look at the time and you're like, yep, sure enough, you're 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2 hours and 20 minutes, because you feel that time, right? And that's because watching movies actually conditions you to know what a 2 hour mark is, right? You literally have almost like an alarm clock. Well, I feel like our alarm clocks have come in 90-second intervals.
Remember we just watched The Batman, which is one of the worst Batman depictions out there.
Yes.
I think it's horrible.
Really bad.
I don't think it should be a movie. But after a while, I'm like, how long is this movie?
Yeah.
Right? And it was over 2 hours by the time we were watching. I was like, this movie is way too long. And I don't know if it's now because we're so used to watching TV shows. In general, I think as a public, we've just realized that TV shows, the production, the scripting,
it's just more
story development is more entertaining than movies. Movies are horrible nowadays. Yeah. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I think we're out of that training now. 2 hours is too long.
Yeah, 2 hours is too long, which, now, you run the risk of 60 seconds, 90 seconds even being too long, right? You look at a reel and you want to get to the point. You don't want to, this is why a lot of reels go, wait till the end, wait for it. Yeah. Right? Because they realize somebody's going to drop off. They just want to see what it's going to be at the moment that
it's funny you mention that because at this point right now, we're thinking about shortening our reels for YouTube or even for Instagram because we're like, well, there's a big drop off. Maybe we should do 30-second reels because you really want to hook the audience that quick.
Maybe we should do 1 second.
Just like Conan O'Brien.
Right.
Alfred.
The following takes place between 1:38 on the dot and 1:38 and 1 second.
What?
Remember that TV show 60? Was it 60 or 24?
Well, the TV show was actually 24, and it was supposed to be in 1 hour intervals of 24. But then Conan O'Brien on his show did a parody of that called 60, where it was only 60 seconds. So he would only do 1 second at a time.
He picks up the phone. And then it's like then the next episode of 60, which low key 24 was one of the best shows out there. That started the whole. For me, that was
season 1 was.
It was one of the best of those TV series that kind of started people tuning in consistently. I think that and The Sopranos, and I never watched The Sopranos, but some other shows out there on HBO kind of started this whole thing of, you know, maybe you can get really amazing content on TV.
Movie style, some, you know, kind of movie style content on TV. Yeah.
So Jamar, thank you very much for that suggestion. Once again, guys, he is suggesting Indistractable. We'll put that link in the show notes, the Amazon link. Hey, listen, when you click on that link, and if you purchase that book, we get a little something, you get a little something, if you know what I mean. Come on.
They get a book.
Yeah, and you get to support this channel also.
There you go.
Or support our podcast also.
There you go.
All right. So once again, he says that Indistractable explains the psychology driving our distractions and getting the most out of technology without letting it control our lives. So I might add that to our book list for this year. But thank you very much, Jamar. Let's move on to episode 346 on Instagram, where we talk about Renee working out.
What?
Yeah, so you hate working out.
I do hate working out.
But now you are almost 6 weeks into T25.
I am.
Let's talk about that.
First of all, I would like my round of applause, please. No, a round of applause. Round. Make it round. There you go.
There you go. You got your round of applause. No, I'm proud of you though. 6 weeks, you know, no major detours, no significant time off. You didn't fall off the wagon.
Nope.
So T25 is a 10-week program.
Yeah, it's a 10-week program. We started, now I'm into week 6. So there's like the alpha phase. That's the first 5 weeks. And then there's the beta phase, which is now what we're entering. So we did like the first two. So we finished the alpha phase. We're now in the beta phase. But why are you working out? Because you hate working out. I do hate working out. I'm working out for a number of reasons. One, obviously, I know I need to work out. I'm way too sedentary. My life has definitely been more sedentary than I ever thought it would be. 2, I would like to build a habit. And 3, I'd like to see some results, which you get on me about. Why do you want to see results? Why do you want to see results? I'm like, because I do. Like, I don't understand why you get on me about that.
I didn't say what I'm saying. Guys, when she started this program, I said, this will be great if you can be consistent with working out. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, you know, maybe you can see this type of, and she cuts me off, and she knew that I was heading towards maybe either, you know, gaining more muscle or losing weight or whatever it may be, right? And then you cut me off and you're like, I don't care about any of that stuff. I want to build a habit. And I was like, all right, cool. So now we're 6 weeks in and you're already talking about, maybe we should go to or I should go to a gym, or maybe I need to see some type of results. It's like, but you told me you were doing this initially just to build a habit. I'm just going off of what you're saying. You're changing the stakes, changing the goalposts.
I'm not changing no goalposts. So I think that I can have more than one thing that I'm trying to accomplish. So yes, I'm trying to build a habit, but dude, I told you, after 10 weeks, right? And this is what I said. I said, man, when we reach 10 weeks of this T25, I said, man, I better see some results. I better see something. And you're like, oh, but you're just trying to build a habit. I'm like,
But that's what you told me.
I understand that.
I tried to talk to you about results and you stopped me multiple times and said, you're just trying to build a habit.
Right, but that was like almost 6 weeks ago.
Who knows if that's enough time to build a habit?
Okay, but guess what? If I go 10 weeks of doing this straight every day for 10 weeks, I'm building a habit. I think I can at least give myself that credit to be like, yes, I've built a habit of working out 10 weeks. I don't think I've ever worked out 10 weeks straight outside of high school.
Okay.
Right?
What is your point?
My point is that at the point at which I feel like I've built a habit, I think that I have the right to then say, hey, you know what? I've built this habit and I've been doing it for 10 weeks straight. I'd like to see some results. I think that that's okay.
It's your right to feel and want whatever you want. I'm just going based off of what you told me. When I tried to bring up the results, then you cut me off and said, let the record show.
Anyway,
and
I didn't say that. But that was 6 weeks ago. That was 6 weeks ago when I had
5.5 weeks ago.
Okay, excuse me. 5.5 weeks ago. That was when I had not built a habit. You can't tell me that
you said at the end of 10 weeks you'll build a habit. We're not even at the end of 10 weeks. What
I said,
about?
but I just said to you, if I get, and I told you that yesterday. I said, if I get to week 5 of the beta phase, which would make me 10 weeks in to T25, and I even pointed to you on the calendar. I said, man, by the time we reach here, I better see some results. And you were like, oh, you're just trying to build a habit. And I'm like, but at that point, I would have built the habit. Man, let us know who's right or wrong. Okay, Team Renee or Team Nii. Okay.
Either way, I'm proud of you. Keep
you.
You're doing work. So how we make it work is Renee has a hard time working out on her own. So I've decided to. I've already passed T25. I'm on now Insanity 30. I'm actually moving on to something else. I forget who the trainer is, but it's someone new. We use Beachbody because I don't want to go to the gym. I ain't got time to go to the gym. And if I say I'm going to
got time for that.
If I say I'm going to go to the gym, I'm not going to work out. So for me, 30 minutes online. I don't have to bring anything except, my tablet. I'm good. So yeah, you're doing T25. So I said I'll do it with you. Mm-hmm. I'll be consistent. So when I go on locums and I'm gone, like I'm, hours away or however far away, we do our workouts on Zoom.
Yep.
So if I'm night call, then we do the workouts during the daytime right before I go to bed. And then if I'm daytime shift, then we do the workouts at night after she puts the kids to sleep, which is tougher because she's tired, I'm tired. But either way, we get it done. And we increase her likelihood of doing the workout because there's a social component. There's an accountability aspect that she wants. And that's me being on Zoom with her. And it's working.
Yeah, it works. So, yeah, thank you for doing the workout with me.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
You are welcome.
I think there is that social component. I talked about not doing like Peloton and doing all those things because I just feel like I don't have like people around me. I'm sure there are people who have that social component and they can do that virtually for the most part. And you and I do it virtually, but not all the time. Obviously, you're home a lot, so we get that. But for me, I realized that part of the reason I joined the track team in high school was because of the camaraderie, because I had people around me, because I just really like that social component. And so that's also part of why I do the African dance class, is because there's this social component to it. There's people around me. The drums are playing, everything like that. So when it came to working out, I was like, I don't really want to, I just didn't have that motivation to do that because there was no social component. And like you, I don't like going to the gym. I don't want to go to a spin class. I don't want to go wherever because I feel like that distance between me and the place, between home and that place, it's just going to discourage me to go. So I'm glad that you're doing it with me. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
you really like me.
You're welcome.
You really like me.
All right, Sally Ride. All right, listen, guys, we got some questions about taxes as well as locums, but let's take a break. We'll be right back. Backdrop, 2012, finishing my fellowship in Miami, and no decision bigger than where and how I was going to start working on my own. And there it was, the fork in the road. Being employed versus something I had never heard of before, locum tenens. So I decided to go the locums route, and I had a ton of questions then. I stumbled a bit, but eventually I was able to stand on my own, and I have been working locums over the past 10 years. Now, what about you? If you're considering locums, you probably have hella questions just like I did. Like, who covers my malpractice? Do I really have control over how often I work? And what are the tax implications? Now, lucky for you, locumstory.com has the answers you need. It's packed with unbiased information and advice from docs just like you. And there's nothing to sell here. It's just a simple resource for information, like finding out what's the average pay rate for your specialty. There's even a quiz to see if locums is right for you. So listen, take my advice. Locumstory.com is the perfect place to start if you want to learn more about locums. That's locumstory.com. All right, y'all, we are back. Let's jump into this. This is tax time. So we are recording this on March 29th. We have already filed an extension for our business taxes. If you don't know, there's usually 2 dates in the year for when you're supposed to file taxes. Most people, if you don't have a business, if you're just filing your own personal taxes, that deadline is April 15th. If you have a business, an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, whatever it is, and it's a business, you need to have your taxes ready a month earlier, which is March 15th. We ain't have all that done. So we're going to have to file an extension once again to get it done for a whole bunch of different reasons. But either way, it's going to get done. So right now, what we're working on is actually getting 1099s. That's if we work with different people that we hire. Like we're talking about like virtual assistants or, other folks that we've worked with, like people who edit our podcast, whether it's a video, our video editor, our audio editor, our executive assistant, whatever it is, we got to pay those people, and the government wants to know who we're paying over a certain amount. Usually that amount is once you go past $600, then you have to report that to the IRS. And that gets reported to the IRS as what's called a 1099. Yeah. And then the 1099 gets sent to that individual, the person who's doing the business or who's doing the work for you. And then they use that to submit in their taxes. So that's what we're getting out right now. And, it is what it is. It's just part of business, and that's just what it is. But one thing that I wanted to talk about is I got a question from another doctor who I work with at another hospital who wants to work with hospitals, but he doesn't want to be employed by hospitals. He kind of wants to be an independent contractor. He wants to be an independent contractor. Right. And the easiest thing, I think the most default option when you're working with a hospital, whatever specialty it is to be employed by them, right? Like you work for them, you are an employee, you get health care and all of these different things.
And they tell you where to be, when to be.
Right. The other option, and there's multiple other options, but one of the other options that's growing a lot is to become an independent contractor to do locums. And when you are a locums doc, you just are basically a vendor that works with the hospital. Now you're providing a service, and when you provide that service, you bill the hospital and they pay you. Right. And when they pay you, there are no taxes that are taken out. They just pay you a lump sum for that work that you do, and then it's on you. It's incumbent on you to make sure that you're taking out enough for taxes. You're taking out enough to make sure that you can do your medical, your healthcare coverage, your medical malpractice, all the things. If they don't
provide that for you, the medical malpractice. Anyway.
Correct. Right. So that sometimes can scare some people off. But we've been doing this, for over 10 years now. We made some small mistakes, but it is what it is. Like we like it. I prefer this way. But he asked me a question about the different types of insurance, medical malpractice insurance, because I think there's one deal that he's working with a hospital where he's going to have to provide his own medical malpractice. Yeah. And there are 2 types of medical malpractice out there, guys. There's occurrence-based medical malpractice, and then there is claims-made medical malpractice. Basically, what those are, this is what we call professional liability insurance. Right. This is stuff that protects you if someone wants to sue you. If there's an issue of delivery, if there's an issue of a gallbladder, God forbid, this is to make sure that if someone rightfully wants to, or whatever it is, wants to, sue you for what you did to them clinical-wise, you have coverage. Right. Right. So those 2 types of medical malpractice types are occurrence-based and claims-made. Right. And the way in which it works is the difference mainly is when can someone sue you and are you going to be covered? Right. So occurrence-based is you're going to be covered and you're going to have insurance during the time when you have coverage, right? But let's say, for example, you worked at a hospital for 5 years. Okay. And then at the end of 5 years, you leave and you go to another hospital and you're working someplace else. But let's say like the last person you operated on at year 5 at that hospital wants to sue you. Right. And it's like, and now you're like in year 3, 4, 5 of another hospital. That's where the difference between claims made and occurrence based is. So occurrence based is as long as they are suing you for stuff that happened within that that time when you were there,
frame.
you are going to be covered.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's 5 years out that you left the hospital, 10 years out, you're going to have coverage. They are going to cover you.
Right.
Right. Now, claims made coverage is okay, let's say you are working during that time of 5 years and you're still working there and they decide to sue you, they will cover you.
Right.
But let's say you're now in year 2, year 3, year 4 of another hospital under another medical malpractice, they will not cover you if someone decides to sue you. Let's say at year 6, year 7, someone says, yeah, we're going to sue you for what you did at the other hospital.
Right.
They are not going to cover you unless you buy something that's called tail coverage. Go ahead, twerk it for them, Renee. Go ahead and twerk it for them. So oftentimes when you hear people talk about claims made medical malpractice, you'll hear someone say claims made with a tail.
Yeah.
So what that means is you're getting coverage for claims, but then when you leave that place or you decide to terminate that contract, you need tail coverage that's going to cover you for a certain amount of years afterwards.
Right.
You may be thinking, well, what's the big deal about this? Like, you're talking all this stuff. The way how it makes a big deal is how much that medical malpractice costs. Like, you have to pay on a monthly basis, or you have to pay every 6 months, or on a yearly basis. You're going to have to pay a premium on that, right?
Yeah.
Similar to when you buy car insurance, right? Or if you buy disability insurance, you pay a monthly fee. When you do car insurance, most people pay every 6 months. It's similar to that.
Yeah.
So the question is do you want a high premium or do you want a low premium?
Right.
Based off of what I've explained to you, occurrence-based insurance is more expensive.
Which would make sense, right? Because you're going to be covered pretty much, for the life of however long you can get sued.
Correct. I like that insurance.
Everybody likes occurrence insurance, right? Everybody loves
Does your pocketbook like it, though?
Well, but everybody likes it, right? Because especially if you go to a facility and you have occurrence insurance at that facility, when you leave, you don't have to worry about paying for a tail, right? Whereas if you went to a facility and they're like, well, we'll cover you with claims-based, when you do leave, now you have the burden of finding tail insurance.
Oh, yes. So claims is usually cheaper.
Right.
Claims is usually cheaper on a monthly basis, on a 6-month basis. The issue is that tail coverage usually is a large lump sum payment. So yes, on a monthly basis, either you who are a locums, if you're paying for it, you're paying a significant, or you're paying a lower amount for claims-based insurance compared to occurrence-based.
Yeah.
Or the hospital is paying for it. But then when you're done, someone has to purchase this tail coverage for you. And usually that tail coverage can be like 3 times, sometimes even 4 times, even 5 times the total amount of what you've paid for the premium. So it could be like expensive. I've seen people have like tail coverage be like $40,000, $50,000, sometimes even higher than that.
Oh my gosh.
So it could be very expensive. So I think what ends up happening is when you are working as an independent contractor, people will get either occurrence or they'll get claims made, and then they will put that into their rate. So they'll increase their rate by a certain amount to make sure that that's covered. So what was once, something that would be $50 an hour, I'm just making this up, guys.
Yeah, please don't take $50 an hour, guys.
If it's $50 an hour, if you decide to get occurrence based, you may want to increase your rate to, I don't know, I'm just making it up to $80 an hour or $90 an hour, right? So that whatever you're bringing in, you're paying for that. Or if it's claims made, you make it a little bit cheaper. Either way, you have to incorporate this into your rate. All right. So for those who are listening right now, like, this is not hard. This is not impossible. All it is do you want to pay up front now with occurrence based and pay a little bit of a higher amount and not have to worry about tail coverage when you leave? Or do you want to pay a cheaper amount up front and then later on make a large payment for tail coverage?
Right.
That's the big difference between claims made versus occurrence-based. Now, the other thing I know that you wanted to mention is if your job, particularly if you're at a private practice, if they offer insurance for you, what you should be talking about.
Right. So that's something that's really important to know. But even as a contractor, right, not even so much even as an employee, but even as a contractor, sometimes the facility is going to say, don't worry about malpractice, we'll cover it for you, right? Like many of the places that we worked have done that. But you still want to know, is this occurrence or is this claims made?
Oh yeah, you should definitely be asking.
You should definitely be asking because
all of the contracts that we've looked at, all the contracts when I was employed, and definitely when I was doing locums, we were very specific to ask, and it says it on there. Is this occurrence or is this claims made?
Right. And you want to know because if it is claims made, you are still going to be responsible for that tail unless you've negotiated that in. Right. So that's just something that people should be thinking about, whether you are an employee or not. But certainly as a contractor, right, it doesn't absolve you because someone has covered your medical malpractice. It doesn't absolve you from having to get tail coverage if you were covered under a claims made policy.
Yeah. And speaking of negotiations, we had on episode 349, we had Mandy from the Brown Ambition podcast, very popular podcast. As a matter of fact, we created a Instagram reel and also a YouTube short of this, and we had a couple of comments that we wanted to address. Yeah. I don't even know where my phone is at. So I don't know where is that right now?
Instagram? You don't know what's on Instagram?
Yeah, we're going to keep it short though. But basically, the video that we released, it was on what leverage is specifically when you are quote unquote an entry level worker.
Yeah.
In the case of us, what we do in general, entry level is a resident, right? And that's a situation where you come in, you're not really in control of how much you get paid, you're not in control of your hours, but
that's the real entry.
Right. So what kind of leverage do you have there? That was a really interesting episode. That's a really interesting spot. But a couple of people have said some comments. Let's go with the one who is a resident. Can you read that one?
Yes. So let's see. Anika Z, MD, MPH. She talked about, she said, I'm so excited that Mandy Money is talking about this. I've been listening to Brown Ambition podcast religiously for years, but I often feel like there's nothing I can...
Docs outside the box also religiously. But anyway, move on.
I often feel like there's nothing I can do to change things for myself as an ortho resident and a single mom. Orthopedics is crazy competitive, and I have been told so often to just be grateful that I matched and take whatever I am given. But I really feel that even as an entry-level employee with a doctorate and a master's, I should be able to at least make enough to provide for my son.
So I'm just going to say that I think there's two approaches you can look at this, right? There's the approach of...
She's a resident right now.
Yeah, there's the approach of you're going to try to change the system or you're going to be a martyr for the system. Right. And the other approach is like, look, like you either are going to play in the game, in the system, or you're going to play out of the system. We always talk about this on the show. Like we decided that, look, we played the game, and then after a while, we're like, look, we're out of the system and we're going to work as independent contractors. So I do think that there is a component of, listen, sis, I get what you're saying. You got into orthopedic surgery. That is a very competitive field. Great. Be happy that you got that, but I'm going to need you to finish. I'm going to need you to do really well, finish. But just because, you're in that process of working really hard, doing long hours, it doesn't mean that you can't practice being a good steward with your money. And on top of that, you already have a child. That's going to be really difficult, right? There's daycare, there's preschool, there's all of these different things that you're going to have to pay for. Like it's a lot of different things, but I do think that there are ways that you can practice good money management, i.e. making sure that you're building an emergency fund. Even as a resident, you can do that.
Yeah, slowly.
It doesn't have to be a year. It doesn't have to be 6 months, but it can at least be 3 months of just at least the rent, at least the electricity, at least maybe the car payment, and making sure that you're not only just saving, but also trying to invest a little bit also, whether it's in your own IRA or if your residency has like a 401k or a 403b, just putting a little something away just so you can start working out, okay, this is what it's like to invest my money in this fund. I think a lot of times what residents miss out on is they think that they don't have enough money to invest. Right. And they say, oh, it's going to be easier when you graduate and you're making a significant more money. But then you become gun shy because you have all of this money. You're not used to having all of this money. And as a result, you feel the stakes are higher and you don't want to you don't want to make the moves to invest.
Because you think it's risky.
And as a result, you stick your head in the sand, you give it to someone else, and they're charging you an exorbitant fee to invest your money.
Or worse, you don't invest at all. Right.
We've seen that.
Right. Or you don't invest at all. Right. So it really is about, building good habits now. Right. Just kind of doing things, when the stakes are I guess, a little bit lower, at least financially. Maybe the stakes are a little bit lower. Obviously, having a child, being a single mom, especially during residency, where you have a residency that's very demanding, long hours and things
Shout
like that.
Shout out to her, because that's tough.
Yeah, that is
because,
tough.
you got to be at work by, 6 in the morning? Who's watching your child?
Right.
At 6. School don't start till 8.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And so, that can be really tough. Daycare is very expensive. Childcare is very expensive. So that can certainly be a strain. But prepare for things to change. Right. And I think that's what you're saying, right? Is basically prepare for things to change. You are not going to be a resident forever. And you're going to have a point in your life when you finish this residency program, you're going to be able to choose the way that you work, right? You're going to be able to choose the way that you work, choose the things that you do, choose the hours that you want to have. Especially if you say, I'm not just going to follow a traditional path and just, go to the office, be on call, do surgeries, just the way that people want us to do it. So prepare for things to change, I think, is the best way to
and I think, obviously what we see on Twitter real quick is there's a lot of doctors right now or residents who are saying we should get paid more because we need to keep up with inflation, or just in general, the amount of work that we do per how much we get paid is not commensurate. We bring in so much more money for the hospital and they don't have to pay much for us. You can increase our salary.
Right.
Someone needs to argue that point, but also at the same time, I don't know if this is going to change. You still need to practice good money management until you get to that point.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Renee. Technology won't let us be great. That's all y'all need to know. SD cards.
Basically, all I was saying was that regardless of whether or not the system changes, you still need to be a good steward of your money, right? You still need to prepare for things to change, and realize that having good financial habits isn't really about the amount of money that you make.
Yeah, that's a really good point. People are like, man, I'll just do good when I get more money.
Right. People be like, yo, when I'm making them 6 figures, it's over for you bitches. It's like, wait, hold on a second.
Whoa. Dun, 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 dun. La, 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 la. Wait till I get my money right. Oh, it doesn't work like that, guys. It don't make it. Yo, you got to start early, all right? Because you're going to think you're going to try to get into God, you're going to buy down on a necklace.
You pre-med talk about, you just wait. You wait till I take that MCAT, and then you wait until I get into med school, and then I'm going to graduate from med school, and then I'm going to match, and then we'll go through residency, and then once I finish residency, get my first job, and then I'm board certified, it's going to be over for you bitches.
Oh, yeah. And you're going to get that Audi S5. You're going to get that chain from Jacob. I don't even know if Jacob still exists. Whoever's ripping, rappers off nowadays. You can do all those different things. But listen, we can go really on and on about this. So listen, ultimately the most important thing, guys, is it's important to practice really good, money management.
Right.
And that can start wherever you are in your wherever you are in your ladder socioeconomically. To the doc who wrote that comment, yo, shout out to you. That is dope. You're an orthopedic surgeon. You're taking care of your son. You're going to be an amazing role model to him. Keep up the great work. You're going to be finished. And trust me, that pot of gold is going to be waiting for you when you finish, all right? So
I got one more thing that I want to say.
Keep it quick, man.
I'm going to keep it quick.
We're going to run out of SD card space.
I got one more thing that I need to say. So on that same Instagram post that we did, there's a doc who also wrote, and she says, I love this. She's talking about what Mandy is talking about. She says, I love this. The emaciated dog fighting for scraps is spot on. In the last 2 years, I've gotten my colleagues to discuss pay when it's extra shifts, and we got a rise of per hour pay from the hospital. I still won't tell them what I made as a locum because they really would they would really hate it then. And then she goes on to say, currently UK junior docs are striking each month because if what is it? UK doctors are striking each month because I guess it started I'm not sure what she says, but she says, I can't wait to return to the locum world.
Oh, just so you guys know, you can not only add England, but now Scotland. Their junior doctors might be striking any couple of days by now. They're voting on it right now. They're going to take a strike. So,
man.
But yeah, listen,
The
man.
whole of the UK, man.
Listen, man, like it's really all about, when we talk about unions and all those different things, like it's really about like trying to get a whole bunch of people to feel a certain way about one thing. That is tough, right? Especially when you have so many different interests. And yeah, like Dr. A may get paid more than Dr. B. Trying to convince Dr. B, C, D, and E to go back to the hospital and let them know that we want to get a certain amount of salary is going to be really hard to scrounge all those people up. But if you can do it, that's the way how to do it. And I agree, man. Like, I'm the same way. Like, I don't talk to everybody about my locums rate because my number one fear is that Dr. B, C, and D will just say, you know what? We know that Dr. A is getting paid a certain amount. Let's try to collude and try to get a lower rate. And I'm like, why am I going to let you take money out of my mouth? Hell no, I ain't telling you how much I get paid.
You put money in your mouth?
Huh? You eat pieces of what? All right, y'all. But y'all know where we're going with this. There's so many different ways we can go on this show. We're going to talk about this maybe in another future episode. But listen, we appreciate everyone for listening. We appreciate y'all for communicating with us and commenting on our content on Instagram, YouTube, as well as
Very
through
helpful.
email and Textiful. All of this stuff is really helpful. And once again, if you want to text us directly, you could text us at 833-230-2860. We will catch you guys on the next episode of Docs Outside the Box. Peace. Shout out to the SD cards.